Imagine walking across a huge desert under a blazing sun. Your armor is heavy. You're thirsty. You're tired. And somewhere nearby, thousands of enemy soldiers are watching your every move. Arrows start flying through the air. Your army is being attacked again and again and again. Now imagine your leader is not hiding behind the army. Instead, he rides right at the front, holding his sword, ready to fight beside his soldiers. That leader was King Richard the Lionheart. And the enemy he was facing was one of the most famous generals in history, Saladin. Saladin had already defeated many Crusader armies and captured the city of Jerusalem, one of the most important cities in the world at the time. People believed Saladin was unstoppable. But then Richard the Lionheart arrived. And during one incredible battle, Richard used patience, discipline, and perfect timing to defeat Saladin's army in a way that shocked everyone. To understand this story, we first need to go back a little in time. Hundreds of years ago, there were wars called the Crusades. These wars were fought between Christian and Muslim armies over control of important lands and cities in the Middle East. One of the most important cities was Jerusalem. For both religions, the city was extremely sacred. In the year 1187, Saladin led his army to a huge victory against the Crusaders at a battle called the Battle of Hattin. The Crusader army was surrounded. They had almost no water. Many soldiers died, and many leaders were captured. After that victory, Saladin marched toward Jerusalem. Soon, the city fell under his control. Across Europe, people were shocked. Jerusalem was one of the most important cities for Christians, and losing it felt like a disaster. So many European kings decided to launch a new crusade to try to take it back. This became known as the Third Crusade. One of the most famous kings who joined was Richard I of England, also known as Richard the Lionheart. Richard earned the nickname Lionheart because of his courage in battle. He wasn't the kind of king who stayed safe in a castle while others fought. Richard trained as a knight and loved leading armies. Soldiers admired him because he was brave, strong, and confident. When people heard that Richard was joining the crusade, many believed he might be the one leader who could stand against Saladin. When Richard finally arrived in the Middle East, he quickly proved he was a powerful commander. In 1191, Richard's army captured the important city of Acre after a long and difficult siege. This victory gave the Crusaders an important base along the coast. But Richard's bigger goal was still ahead. He wanted to move his army toward Jerusalem. To do that, he marched his soldiers south along the Mediterranean coast. Saladin followed nearby with his army. But Saladin didn't want to start one big battle right away. Instead, he used a clever strategy. His soldiers rode fast horses and attacked Richard's army constantly. They shot arrows and quickly rode away. Then they returned again and again. The goal was simple: make Richard's soldiers angry, tired, and impatient. If the Crusaders broke their formation and charged too early, Saladin's faster cavalry could surround them and destroy them. For days and days, Richard's army was under attack. Arrows filled the sky. Horses were wounded. Soldiers were exhausted. Many knights wanted to charge and fight back. But Richard kept telling them to hold the line. This required incredible discipline. Imagine being attacked over and over again and wanting to fight back, but being told to wait. Richard understood something very important. If his army attacked too early, they would lose the battle. So he waited for the perfect moment. Finally, on September 7, 1191, the two armies faced each other near a place called Arsuf. This would become one of the most famous battles of the Crusades. Saladin's army began attacking early in the morning. Wave after wave of soldiers fired arrows at Richard's army. The Crusaders marched slowly while keeping their formation strong. Foot soldiers protected the knights. Archers fired back when they could. But the attacks kept coming. Hour after hour, Saladin's forces pressed harder. They believed the Crusaders would eventually panic. Some of Richard's knights were becoming desperate. One group, called the Knights Hospitaller, begged Richard for permission to charge. At first, Richard refused. He knew the timing was not right yet. But the pressure continued to grow. Arrows were striking shields and armor. The soldiers were exhausted from defending themselves. Then finally, Richard saw the moment he had been waiting for. He gave the order. Trumpets sounded across the battlefield. And suddenly, thousands of Crusader knights charged forward together. The ground shook as armored horses raced towards Saladin's army. These knights were like the tanks of the medieval world. They wore heavy armor and carried long lances designed to smash through enemy lines. When the knights crashed into Saladin's soldiers, the impact was powerful. Lances splintered. Shields broke. Soldiers were thrown from their horses. For a moment, the battlefield became chaotic. Saladin's army had expected the Crusaders to lose control earlier. Instead, they were now facing a perfectly organized cavalry charge. Richard didn't stop there. After the first attack pushed Saladin's forces back, Richard reorganized his army and ordered another charge. This second attack pushed Saladin's soldiers even farther away. Eventually, Saladin's army had to retreat. The Crusaders had won the Battle of Arsuf. It was one of Richard the Lionheart's greatest victories. Even though Saladin had lost the battle, he still respected Richard greatly. Both men were known as brave and honorable leaders. There is even a famous story that during one battle, Richard lost his horse. When Saladin heard about this, he sent Richard 2 new horses so he could continue fighting properly. This shows the respect these 2 leaders had for each other, even though they were enemies. After the victory at Arsuf, Richard moved his army closer to Jerusalem. But capturing the city was still extremely difficult. Even if Richard took Jerusalem, Saladin's larger army might surround the city and trap the Crusaders. Richard had to think carefully. Winning a battle was one thing. Holding the city long-term was another. Instead of risking everything, Richard chose a different path. He decided to negotiate with Saladin. In 1192, the 2 leaders agreed to a peace treaty. Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control. However, Christian pilgrims would be allowed to travel safely to the city. This agreement ended the fighting for a while and allowed people from both sides to visit the holy places peacefully. Richard soon returned to Europe. He became famous as one of the greatest warrior kings in medieval history. Saladin also remained one of the most respected leaders in the Islamic world. Both men became legends, remembered for their courage, intelligence, and leadership. The story of Richard the Lionheart shows that great leaders don't just rely on strength. They rely on patience, smart planning, and knowing exactly when to act. And sometimes, waiting for the right moment can change the entire course of history. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more amazing history like this, check out the next video on your screen about another legendary battle from the medieval world. And if you love exciting history stories explained in a simple way, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you never miss the next adventure.